Two. You working? Okay. 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 So I'm gonna start with the spawning of the enemies. Okay. So I have. Let me show you guys what I have so far. So what I'm doing right now to track my time and anticipate, kind of measure, and you can do this with money or time. It's the same. What I'd like to do is track my time and then transfer that to how much it would cost. I just put a random number. Well, not random, but like just an average. Like if this is just all based on if I would get paid $40 an hour. You can say 90, 100, whatever you would like to get paid. It's all monopoly money. But the the main thing is that if you're running a studio, you're running uh, your business, or even just your game, knowing how much it takes you to do certain things, and then measuring it, thinking, okay, well, I wanted to get this done next week or next year, and I did or I didn't. And then you can always, after a while, just switch them to the completed. But for now, until this could be the prototype, I just haven't had time to add everything that I need to do for the prototyping phase. But the main thing is just focusing on priorities, and uh, but these priorities I think sometimes change based on the needs. And here I have this where certain things depend on others. But let's say this one probably is just low because it's just bug fixing. But so I have today we're gonna work on the enemy spawning. This one technically is like high priority right now. Um, X4 effects, multiplayer aspect for effects. So we're not working on that for right now. I'll put it on stuck, and then spawning. That's the one I'm working on. Change that here. Let's say I'm gonna try to get it done today, and I have a budget of 320. That's like 80, 160. So it's 4 hours, I think. 80. 320, yeah. So, oh, whoops. If I got paid 8. So 8 times 40, 8 hours. Yeah. Okay. So 8 hours. I think this is going to take me 8 hours. You could put it by hour. And we're going to do this. I already know how to do it. We're going to do it today. So this is we're going to just work on it for today. That's it. And there's no dependency. Okay. So today we're going to get it done. Maybe not in this block, but I'll try to see. And I already have a few of the mechanics that I want to do. So we're going to do trap tracking. So I call that trap tracking. This is almost like Pokemon, but we're going to make it feel like Pokemon, even though it's not like Pokemon. We're going to have different traps that spawn enemies, but the player won't know. Maybe after a while, it will realize what it's doing. But you get this feeling kind of like in Pokemon where you're going and jumping, like if you're in tall grass and you just keep moving, you only spawn enemies once you keep moving. And so in this scenario, it's the same thing. If you keep moving around the places where there are spawns or traps, you will trigger one of those traps. So we'll do that first. Then with horde mode is basically where it's an infinite amount of spawns. It'll continue to spawn. Trap tracking is the same, but it'll feel different. So horde mode, it will feel more overwhelming and it won't be in waves. So maybe I should set up another one that's in waves. But that's the other versions. So then we have a team-based locked room where the room is locked and it's networked, and it's based on how everyone that's in the scene or all the players. So once all the players get in, the room's locked, and you can progress, move forward. So the idea is that if you want to move forward, you gotta get everyone to that place, and then you'll face whatever enemies are in that room. The other one is single player defeat to unlock. So with this one, you are basically, regardless of who's in the room with you, the main objective is for the player that's playing single for themselves to unlock it. So if you have a campaign, you can do the campaign with multiple people, but only the people that are trying to unlock that path to unlock it at that time. And it will spawn for the people that haven't finished it. So if you finished, for example, if you pass through this, it will already know that you unlocked it, and so you won't need to repeat it. So what happens is that you can use this for times where you want to help someone else. Maybe this is like a big boss, part of the campaign, single player. But if you already defeated this big boss, you can fight it off with your friends if you want to fight it again. We will also have other things, probably if there's like big bosses that people want to fight again and again, that they can do that in events. But this is specifically for the campaign. As you're progressing through, it makes sense that for you, certain things have already been unlocked. And if you're going back and helping a friend, these things will happen too. And you'll be there and you'll be able to help your friend. Network defeat to continue to move forward. This is similar to this one, except the difference between this one is that every time you are there, like, so this is it's like a mix of the single player one and the team based locked room. In order to move forward, you have to defeat an enemy. If you defeat that enemy, maybe a door unlocks. So this will happen every time you load the game or the scene. And if you want to go through that door or something. But the thing with this one is not everyone has to be in that room. So for example, let's say someone goes ahead of you and defeats the monster, then you can just continue to go through. So it's kind of like it's networked, because if someone defeats it and you're not aware of it, you'll continue to move forward. Okay, so these are all the things that I'm gonna try. If and I'll talk about this later, but we can do more. So I'm gonna try to get through these as fast as I can and kind of show you how I work. And then this will be uploaded to YouTube. Probably I'll clean it out a little bit, but we're gonna just dive right in. I have not coded any of this, so I'm gonna kind of show you how I do things. I start tracking. I go like this, and I start working on it. Trap, tracking, and I have notes as to what I want to do, which is what I've explained in here. So I got to make the trap prefab and whatnot. So let's go trap tracking. Okay, so we go to the wizard game, scripts. Okay, so let's talk about tools, game progress. This is the enemy. Let's say it's an enemy system. So we'll put a folder in here under enemies. I will say enemy spawn or spawn logic. So we'll do all the spawn logics. And if we figure out that if I figure out that I need a base class, I will. But for now, I'm just gonna do it as a mono behavior. I do know I want trap brief. Let's just call it monster trap or spawn trap. Spawn trap. We'll call it that, and then we'll have the actual trap. We call it trap tracker. Yes, I think we. Tracker. Okay. So me sure. Me make sure I'm just talking to my Discord to make sure everyone is aware of the live stream and okay, so let's start with the spawn trap. I know with this one, let me see. I have some notes of some stuff that I was thinking for the game. I was just kind of brainstorming. So usually what I do is I kind of brainstorm where I have like downtime that I'm away from my computer, and I start thinking about things. Okay, let me check. So I have in my head. So we were thinking we need to have, and it doesn't matter if the player hacks all this stuff because it's just, at least for most of the part, we have an int. So this will be the index. So what will happen is that, let me, in this, no, we have spawn trap in that, bonita. I always like to pen these because then I don't have to look for them. And then have the trap. Okay, so we'll work between these. Okay, so the trap tracker will have, let's start thinking out loud. Just kind of thinking, we'll say we'll have a field, game objects. Oh, hey, Xavier, what's up? Okay, so let's say we have serialized field of spawn traps. So these are spawn traps and they're set at the beginning, or these are prefab. So these are all the spawned traps. So we're gonna keep an index of all the traps, and we're gonna, okay, and then we have, I'm gonna grab the other tool that we have for spawning enemies. So what I have is logic. Sometimes I forget the, let's say, the name of my scripts, and I have to do better at that. But we have enemy zones, prefab, layer detection. Okay, so this is like the base. This is the basic thing that I had for right now for the spawning. So we have a bunch of spawner, the enemy spawner, and so this is like for detecting the player. Then we have the enemy spawner on here. And so we have lowest level, highest level possible. So now we can vary the levels. We have the possible monsters. So this is what I want in here is all the possible monsters and the traps. And so what's gonna happen is spawn trap is gonna get game object reference because we're gonna load these. We don't want to have to preset the trap monster prefab, and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So what we're gonna do is this and this. Let me comment in here maybe. Decides what monster and level, or it doesn't matter. Decides what monster we will spawn. Okay, so that's the first thing. We don't. So we're gonna decide what monsters spawn. Sets the trap with the monster. Hey, what's up? And so we're gonna set up the trap with the monster. Okay, and then we are also gonna set the index of the trap so we can replace the trap after. So what's gonna happen is this function is gonna keep, like, let's say we have a list of 10 traps. Every time a trap gets triggered, it will replace it. So we need also, and you'll see it in action when we get it all figured out. So we also have a list of transform of possible locations. So these are where the traps are going to be put in. So we're going to create possible monsters, possible locations. So we're going to do, let's see if we want to do it on start, because there's not a big deal if it on start. So what's going to happen is on start, we're going to go through, and this is where I would use ChatGPT for some of the logic. So I'll go in here, let me grab, we'll do ChatGPT, and I have the free version. So to show you that you can do this with this free version, and I would say, okay, like I give it this, let's have ChatGPT do all the work for us. How about that? Okay, so I'm gonna say I have enemy spawner that and I have a tracker, a trap class. Oops. And I need the enemy spawn, or what was the class called? Sorry, I have a trap tracker. Trap tracker, and I have a trap class. I need the trap tracker class to contain a certain. No, I need the trap. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure that I say it right so that it gives me the correct thing. So I say the trap tracker will have a predetermined amount of traps to set. It will contain more transform locations than traps. We need to keep track of where we spawn these traps so that we don't reuse the same transform. Or maybe we do. So the reason why it might be good to use, like if you double up on traps, and when someone triggers that trap, maybe two monsters spawn, which might be good. It might be okay. So you have to face two monsters instead of one. But we still want it to not do that if we can, and then later on we can change it. But this is why we're like thinking about this right now, so that we can think, do we really want that? Yes or no? Because that's why I asked ChatGPT, because I don't want to deal with that, but maybe we can. So we'll have the predetermined amount of traps set to set, and then it will contain more transformed locations. The trap will have an undestroy event to subscribe to. So this event will have an index. This index represents the location in the array of traps, so that we know which trap was used. But I don't think we need to. Which trap was destroyed. So let me see. So I'm just trying to think ahead. So if we have spawn traps, which it's just a prefab, so it doesn't really matter. But then we have, so this will happen, and then we'll have an int field int that will say amount of traps. So this is how many traps we want. And then we'll have another game object in here that will say game object will say trap prefab. Okay, so we have a trap prefab. We have the amount of traps we want, and this is the amount of the spawn traps. Let's see, we have that. Now which trap was destroyed? The array of traps will be how we track with. We might not even need that. No, it's okay. So let's let ChatGPT do a bunch of stuff, because I think what I'm doing is I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's say we have a game object of trap prefabs, we have possible monsters and transformer locations, and we have the amount of spawn prefab. So we can have an int for trap count, and that's 0. And so we, let's say on public or void on trap triggered, we trap count minus, but it doesn't really matter what the trap count is. When the trap triggers, we spawn another trap. So let's not worry about that. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so we'll have that. Okay, so we'll erase this. Let me see. It'll contain transform. We have a trap tracker, predetermined amount of traps to set. Traps. We need to keep track of where we spawn these traps so that we don't reuse the transforms. The trap will have it on destroy to subscribe to. This event will need to trigger our own function to spawn another trap, but we need to make sure we don't use the same transform as before. So maybe we set the location of the transform instead. Let's see what it does. Okay, here are my scripts. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that, and let's have ChatGPT do most of it. Then I'll give it this empty one. I don't need the instance anymore. and this one will have a, I'll put this up for now, on trigger enter, spawn enemy, and then spawn enemy, and destroy, trigger, destroy event. So that way ChatGPT knows kind of where to put stuff. Oh. Okay, so we have, so I'll show you guys. So I just put in all that, just put it as is and let it go. For the most part, this is pretty simple sometimes. Okay, so let's see something. I don't have, as you can tell, I don't have the, no, I don't. Okay, so it's there. So this is the trap tracker. Random. Oh, what the heck happened? Keep going. Okay. So we have both. So watch. So I'm just gonna copy. Let me see, because and then there's this one, my ChatGPT. Okay, and then I'll verify some of it because yeah, there's no way it's correct, or it has. I know it's not, because it needs to do some other stuff. So one thing that we need to do differently is that our spawner has to be a network behavior because it's a multiplayer. So this, I forgot to tell it that. And then fusion. Okay, so enemy spawner. Then we have the spawn. The main thing with the problem with this is that this is what I don't like, is that when you spawn these, they have to be spawned and you can't. Okay, yeah, I think I know how to fix this. But anyway, so we'll have this respawner, spawn target. So what happens every time it's triggered, regardless of who it is, will spawn the target. So despawn target, this was working. So I know this was working, so I'm gonna add on trigger enter, destroys this game object. What we can do, instead of doing the destroy, we could just say we'll notify before we even destroy. Instantiate. So we're not gonna instantiate, we're gonna spawn the target. If it's the player, let me see, on trigger if it's player, tag, and target. Oh, so this, okay, so spawner, spawn target. So we have instantiate, instead of instantiate, I'm gonna do the RPC, and we're not gonna on the possible monster. So we have monster prefab here. Where are we gonna, so the other thing we need to do is we don't want, for this trap, when it activates, we don't want it to be right where it is, because the player's gonna have a trigger box to spawn the enemy. So we have to be aware of that. So we're gonna think, okay, where, let's put in here public. I'm trying to think if we want to, because it'll be the same regardless. But if we want to change it later, we can. So spawn T. I'll say spawn T. Okay, so or spawn transform. But here, oh, the other thing we can do is have a spawn position controller. That's a good thing. So what we could do, so what we can do in here is make sure that and I'll show you guys how this works uh, public. But anyways, so we'll do one for each prefab, and I'll show you how it works. But we'll have this be the position, so we don't need this. This is more of a like for a randomizer of positions that I built for something else. So, and then we set up the enemy's possible levels. So the enemy has a possibility of lower and higher levels. So we'll need to set that up too. So public int lowest possible level. Highest possible. So this is just to kind of give it a variety on the monsters. Some are harder, some are easier. I already tested that with the other one. Okay, so we have this. We're not going to instantiate. We're going to RP target. And then what we're going to do is make sure. So I'm going to have a boolean and it says trap trigger. Let's put it up here. Trap trigger equals false. So this is just because we're gonna need to make sure it happens only once. So if in here, if trap triggered, return. And then here, we're gonna set it to true because that's the moment someone actually trigger the trap. Okay, so we have this will work. Now we go back to the tracker and see if, because we're gonna have to adjust because this is gonna be a network behavior. And I have to figure out how to instantiate. So in here, trigger enter any spawner RPC. Oh, that's the, okay. So the enemy spawner is already set by default. Trap tracker. Okay. So let's say we have the available locations. No, we don't need that because already preset. These locations we'll set them manually. And I'll show you later. Spawn initial traps. For each amount of traps, spawn trap at random. Available locations count. Random range. Spawn point. The main thing I don't want to do is make sure that instantiate the trap. Here we need to have it be, because it's a network spawn. So runner, let's say game. Did I get runner? Because I need to figure out how to get the runner in here. So what happens is if I do have actually, oh, let's do loading. Then here, runner. Let's see where I would grab the runner if I do. Game launcher. Runner is right here, but okay. We're gonna have to figure out is how to get the runner to work in here. Or what we could do is if I make this a network behavior too, I'm trying to think. Execution. Okay. Okay. In here, okay, so this will work. So if I have the network, I'm gonna do runner dot, what was it? On, and we're gonna change that. So we're gonna spawn, and we want to do trap component, trap prefab. Oh, because this is a network new trap. Network object. We can check this. What's gonna happen is the trap tracker we're gonna change on public override on this. So with network behaviors, when we have this instead of start, if you do things on start, it will have problems with, because it might load before it's spawned. Okay, so add and then new trap, the traps. I don't think we need to though. I don't think we need to do this. I don't know what it's doing, but we'll see. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so let's think. So it goes through, it instantiates the trap, on trap component, the new trap. If the trap component is not null, the monster prefab is this, and on trap destroyed is that. And then trap active, remove location from available list. Active traps dot add. Okay, if trap destroys, active traps, available location, read location. Oh, so this transform, the transform of what we use, so that we can free it. Okay, so another thing we could do instead, try to think active traps, transform. Okay, let's do it. So we'll have a network object, and then trap destroyed. Component in here. Oh, come on. Network object. Destroyed. Should let me object, yeah, do that. Okay, and we'll see if that works for this. The other thing we need to do is, before I forget, okay, hold on. Let me see when this happens. On target. Okay, so this is all on target. Trigger. Okay. So make sure this happens on all. Okay. Because this will, so these components, these things will only happen on the host, and not the host, but the owner of this. So if someone leaves, let me see. I state change authority. So we're gonna just trying to cover all our bases. So if something change, as state authority, maybe I'll do this. The I player left. Okay, so if a player leaves, that's what I want. So if the player is the owner, so if player has no state authority and local player equals player. So if I'm the one that has state authority and I'm the player leaving, so this is me, then I want to do this. That way we free up, because this could get really bad if people start leaving and coming back and then kind of rendering this useless. And then it'll spawn a random. Okay, so that fixes that if people leave. This guy, let's say, okay, does he need a state authority? Do we need to figure that out? So we have spawn. This will happen. It'll have all these information, but it's not networked. None of these things are networked. So we need to do a state authority change. State authority. So, and technically we don't need to worry about this right now, but since I kind of caught it now, I want to make sure I think about it. Oftentimes you find this out as you start testing with multiple people. But let me see. So but I already know what's gonna happen because I've dealt with it before. So what's gonna happen is I'm tracking and trying to see, okay, like there's nothing networked because I don't need anything networked. I don't want to network everything. What I want is for someone to just do this logic. And usually what will happen is everything's tied together. And if someone leaves and they own this, it's going to break it. And so things are going to get triggered and there's not going to have a variable. And so the way you deal with it is that when someone leaves, you check, okay, this is going to trigger and it's going to change authority for that player. So now someone else has authority. So that means that all this stuff is broken. Okay, so everything's broken. So what we need to do is we have the preset stuff. We have the transforms that are preset. We have the possible monsters. We have the prefab amount of players. And so I probably want to do the same thing as before. I player left because we want to make sure that it gets cleaned out. So what does let me see, because we want to clean out state authority leaves. So this doesn't really matter because if this player leaves, he owns this as well. So we could do this here too if we wanted to. So this is the hard part, is trying to figure out, okay, like what's gonna happen first, because this takes care of that, but usually the person that's the owner on this is the owner on the other one. So if this triggers before the player leaves, this triggers after the player leaves. Okay, so if everyone leaves, what we want to do is destroy it all, like for each. And I don't trust ChatGPT to do this, so I'm doing it myself. So we're gonna go through these active traps and available locations and just so available locations is .clear. We're gonna clear that, and then we want to make sure that we destroy all for each. What is it? Trap component. Oh yeah, for each network. For each network object, and I'll say no in what is it called? Active traps. Okay, so for each one of these, does it let me? Transform. Oh, because I have to do the for each. Active traps dot keys for all the keys. Okay, so we go through all the keys and we're gonna do no dot or runner dot despawn. So we're gonna despawn everything. So this is if the player leaves. As the player leaves and he has state authority, we're gonna despawn all the network objects. And then after that, we're gonna do active traps dot clear. We clear the array or the dictionary. Okay, so we probably don't need this. This is good edge case. I doubt this will ever happen though. Let's just put it in here just in case. Leave it commented out. Sometimes I comment it out if I don't know if I'm gonna use it. So I'm just gonna leave it like that. Maybe I test it. Okay, and if I have state authority, okay, so this clears it out. And then as I come back, I'm gonna have to do this again. So if I change authority and say, okay, now we have a new player that has authority over this. Let's go through this again and draw it up. Okay, so we'll test it out later, but let me grab. Okay, so now we did, what is it called? We did the classes. Now we're gonna set up the prefabs. Okay, so let's go into the room, and I have in here, I have like a thing of a map of where I'm gonna put some of these, because I kind of have a estimate of where things are gonna go. So what's gonna happen is, okay, so I have this map. So this is the map of the dungeon, right? And this one is the trap. So we're gonna test it in here. So we have an enemy spawn zone in here. So this is kind of like what it was before. We're not gonna use that. I'm gonna say P, and I like to use P for prefab, P underscore, and then I can find any prefab. And then from generic to, so spawn, and then spawn trap tracker, right? So it's gonna be 0, 0. Okay, so that's the 0, 0. And then we're gonna have, let's move it over where we need to later, but we're gonna have the spawn tracker or trap tracker. And we're gonna do prefab the trap tracker. Okay. Oh, whoa. Okay. Do we need it? No, let me. Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna need it. Network object. And remember that we said, like, is it gonna allow state authority override? No. But what we know is master client. What this does is Photon Fusion already, when you have a script, a network script that has this checkbox is master client, it will make sure to transfer ownership when the player leaves. So when the master client leaves, this will move that and it will trigger that script that we talked about. So in here, it will trigger this because of that script. So, but you have to make sure you check it off. If you don't check it off, it's not going to trigger and it's going to cause problems. So is master client works for when the master, so that way it makes sure that this script always goes to the master client. The other one is for like grabbable. So if you have a bucket that you want to be able to, like, whoever is the first person to grab it has authority so that they can do stuff with it. That's how you check this box. And then the other option is to destroy when the authority leaves. So like, let's say I grab a bucket and I decide to leave the game, that bucket is now destroyed with me as well. So if you don't want that, you turn that off. But if you do want it to destroy with the player that spawned it, you turn that on. Anyway, those are the different options. See, if I leave this open like this, it will destroy when the person that spawns it leaves. So for example, with this spawner, if the master client leaves the game, it's going to destroy the script. So we don't want that. We want it to stay. Okay. So that's this one. Okay. Then we have, and we'll keep doing, I'll need, did we do it on trigger enter on the other one? Spawn trap on trigger enter. Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is p monster trap or trap. Let's say this is a trap. Okay, so we'll need the spawn trap. Okay. We do need a network object. This one, we'll just have it the same. This one doesn't matter much. No, we can leave it as that, but it doesn't really matter. But the good thing, okay, so let's try this. I'm actually gonna try this because this will destroy it when the state authority leaves. So we might not have to do this. So it'll save us some because I don't want to, for example, this. We don't have to do this because that checkbox will do it for us. Because the moment someone leaves, it'll destroy that. So we don't need to despawn it. So this is a good one. So we'll leave it like this. Okay. Okay, so we have the monster prefab. We have the only monster we have is the flying eyeball. Where is it? Flying eye. Okay, so we have the flying eye. Oh, this doesn't matter because we're gonna set it later. Okay, possible levels. Let's make it hard. Should we make it hard? No, because it's the beginning. This is where you spawn. So let's make it 1 to 5. And then monster prefab will be set. Monster location. So this is where I'm gonna show you some of the other stuff that we did with these other one. This prefab. So we have this enemy spawner. And they have this enemy location, enemy spawn point. So let's grab this. We'll bring it over a prefab. So what happens with this is that it will have these spawn points, and this prefab, all it does is chooses random points for you, so you don't have to do the randomization. Let me see if it's actually using that in here. Spawn trap. Okay, runner dot spawn. Okay, yeah, it is. Get random point. So that script is this. It'll get a random spawn. And I have different things, like to keep track of different things, but this one is just give me a random point. Because I don't care. So what's gonna happen is let's do the spawn trap. So this spawn trap will have a box collider. It'll have a rigid body. Kinematic. We can do doesn't matter. Trigger, and then we have for the player. I want to make sure I follow the same logic. Ignore raycast. Enemy spawner. Raycast. Okay. I want to make sure that this is in the right. Yes, not the subject only. This don't have colliders. Okay, so this will trigger when the player detects it. So I gotta double check where it is. Spawn trap. Okay, so we have the spawn trap. Let's say this is where the player will walk. Like, let's add it. Let's say we're gonna do it here, right? Let's say there's a trap here. Okay. If there's a trap here, you have multiple possible spawn points. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna 0, 0, 0, and then we're gonna say, okay, like we have this one as a spawn point, maybe. The enemy will spawn right here. We have flying eyeballs, so they'll probably be here. We can have different spawn points. So it'll be random, but it won't be right where the player is. It will be around it. And we can change the logic to later, but we can also have multiple different kinds of traps. So this is like a trap that will spawn it somewhere randomly around the player. We can have traps where it'll set it all above. And so even if we do trigger the same trap, put it way above. Okay, so we'll do that like right up here. Okay, so let's say we have that, right? So The enemy could spawn in any of these positions. It doesn't matter. It's just a prefab. Okay, and the trap is right here. So what's gonna happen is we're gonna eventually have multiple traps everywhere in the room. And what's gonna happen, but the tracker is gonna do this for us at runtime. And see like that. And so this is kind of like an idea of what you get, these traps. And so instead of you placing them by hand like this, like I'm doing right now, we're gonna have the script do it. And so the traps are gonna be all over the place, not where these dots are, but where the actual trigger is. That trigger box is what's gonna spawn the monster. Okay, so, and it's network, so even if multiple people spawn, they can trigger multiple traps. Okay, so we're gonna delete all these other ones, but I just wanted to show you guys how it was gonna work. Okay, so now we have it at 0, 0. We have our prefab, wizard game, prefab. This is the multiplayer enemy zone. It's, let's say, let's create a prefab folder for spawn. So we have our zone prefab. Then this one is a prefab now. And delete it. I think it has everything. Oh, so the other thing I need to do, so anytime you want to change a prefab, you have to click open. So that way you're changing the prefab. If you want a variant, you're going to change it separately. So what you're going to do that we need to do is reference this. And it's all set. Okay. The other thing that we need that we haven't done yet, that I just realized we forgot, and before I forget, we're going to need, so we have the trap prefab. We need the levels of the monster. So we need to say here, kind of redundant because you have to keep doing it, but maybe I'll find out a better way of doing this later. But for now, lowest impossible monsters. And then in here, we could say possible. And then net component highest. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to have multiple prefabs. I'll show you how we're going to use it later in a second. So right now I just need to put these on high so it'll tell the prefab which ones they need to be. And this is where maybe we don't want to have the player have access to these fields because it will, because then you can set it to super high numbers and screw everybody in the game, or maybe to level up faster because the bigger the monster, the more levels you get. So that could be a way of cheating. So we have number of traps. So let's say we want 5 traps. We have the spawn, the highest level. So we have 1 and 5. Remember and if, so what will happen is, let's say I have a spawn tracker somewhere. Maybe, I'm gonna do this because yeah, I don't need this. I thought I might need a E. And let's see. So we're gonna do the positions. So we have our trap, possible trap location, right? And we can add for traps, we'll do where we have red, the yellow. Do is we'll actually use it in the real scenario here. Or let's tracker, we'll put it down here. Okay, so now we're gonna, let me just do a bunch. I'll see how, okay, so let me, we have all our traps. So let's say we have, let's do 10 in different locations where the traps can be. Okay, so we have possible monsters, an eye. Okay. And then possible location. So what I do is you can lock it and grab all these and just drag them here. Now you have all. Okay, so you have 10 locations. Unlock it. Okay, so amount of traps. So it'll spawn 5 traps in these 10 locations. Maybe I'll want to do 6 traps. Okay, and then do that. And now we go back here and we start moving where we want these traps. Again, this is where it'll spawn them. Remember that box collider? And we can make the box collider later bigger if we feel like the player's not in it. So, because we know most people are going to try to come in here. And so we want places where people will accidentally step through. And then they'll see the monster. And maybe we have traps that are like a look ahead trap. So that way it'll spawn the monster ahead of them so they see it instead of getting backstabbed. Or maybe that's a good thing. The players will spawn here, so we want to make sure we are aware of that. We don't want them to spawn to fight right off the bat, just when they're moving. We can also, if you wanted to set up something like Pokemon where you have the triggers be on a grass area, you can do all these traps within the grass area. So that way, as players move around, they'll trigger some of these. So let's see, I don't want to do them places that they're not going to get hit, because what happens is if players are they travel to places that they're not interested in, they might not get anything. And so we want to make sure that the traps are, because you got to take into account that not all of these are going to be used. But as they get recycled, they will be reused here and there. So I think the players will eventually realize that this will happen, and so that once they figure out where the triggers are, they will try to like go back and forth and figure out how to trigger it to exploit it, right? Because they're gonna want to fight faster and more monsters at the same time. So they're gonna just go back and forth and farm these. So we gotta think of ways. Oh, that one's way up there. So there's that one. So this is more for like the game designer to then use as a tool to say, okay, this is where I want my spawner to be at. And these are all places where the player is gonna walk by. And so again, that's why they're called traps, because at least that's why I call them traps. The player will hopefully trigger these, and we'll test it right now. So this should work as is right now. We got one done, and that was like a full hour almost for one. So they do take a bit of time, but as we do this, I can reuse the code. Again, like I have this other one that works. Like, so we have an enemy spawner. I just want different types of spawners to do different things. Like I showed you now, this logic is going to be so much different than this. This is like a horde mode where they just keep spawning. And so after a while, it gets kind of crazy. And so I wanted different spawn points to engage the player in different ways at different rooms. After this one, we'll do like a lock on the thing. So let me get I'm going to test it now with the player count. Let's do this. Oops. Okay, so I'm gonna link. Okay, let's see what happens. I think I have everything right. Okay, hopefully I don't hit my desk. And I usually like to open up this. can get an idea of what's going on. See, something happened already. Okay, trap tracker. What happened? Available location. Oh, this is a private. Why is it private? Available locations. Why? Okay, so this spawn at random location. What the? Okay, so I need to do available locations equals possible locations array to let's see list to, so I gotta let me ask ChatGPT. Let me see, because we have so the list to array sharp. That's all it is. Okay, so we have list. Why is it not? Oh, it's a list. Okay, so I have to grab this to list. So I need to list to list. Oh, it won't let me. Array to list. In C#, I forgot. Like that's okay. So okay. So let me check. That is weird though. Let me see. Maybe I can just reuse it. Okay, so yeah, I think this we could just use the list. There's no reason for. Let me check. We could probably use this, but we could say new list transform, and then we have the possible locations. Okay, so that's how we do that, and that should fix this problem. Okay, file again. See, that's what happens when you trust ChatGPT. Okay. 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 So okay. Okay. So there's no errors. We know where the triggers are. Well, I don't know. So you notice that the red points are where things are spawned. So for example, this one didn't get used. This one didn't get used. This one didn't. But these here did get used. So if I walk over here, we'll see that it should trigger a monster unless I got an error. Oh, I gotta like the thing is okay. So yeah, so these are. Oh, there's a spawn. So they did spawn. They are detecting me. So it is working. Let me kill these and then I'll check the. Getting this. I don't have any too fast. Oh, okay, so let me rewrite this. Barely. There. Okay. Set my health. Okay, so if I look back, we're having some errors. Okay. So let's see where the errors are. Oh, it's a draw tool. So that's something else. So that's in the spells. But the trigger seems to be working. So let me make sure I'm double checking the draw tool because that's a good debug. So on destroy, current drawing is null. So I can do something for that, but I'll fix it later. Okay, so we have, let's keep going. Okay, so let's see. So we'll try to keep moving these. What I probably want to do is make the colliders a little bit bigger. But the idea is that you're just moving around and you want to go through, you can go through and there's nothing wrong, right? Like it's in Pokemon, if you want to avoid Pokemons, you go through the tall grass. But then you have trainers. And so that's why we got to add other stuff in here. But see, this one is the big box collider. So regardless, I think someone is here. Okay. In this one, every time I come in, it'll trigger a monster. And for as long as I stay, it'll keep spawning monsters. And the rate changes. So that's the difference. That this one can get pretty overwhelming at times, depending on the location. And then see, so these are spawning as I move around and explore. So I can continue to do this, or I can actually fight these guys, but it can get pretty crazy. Okay, so that's the intervals. I kind of slow them down to be easier, but I think that's bad. So I'm gonna do that. Okay. This is so let's go. I'm gonna finish this up with this. But I'm gonna show you some of the stuff with the spawn. So the enemy spawn zones, they can, let's go to let's fix this one first. We're gonna double check, make sure if the current drawing game object is actually there, we can actually, or if current drawing is not null, we can check that. Okay, so that's that one. And then in the game, so I want to show you kind of the nice thing about this, and we're gonna wrap up. I have to do all these other enemy spawners that will be more complicated than this one, but now we have something that we can adjust. So for example, on this one, we can adjust the number of traps, but the thing that I want to adjust is the trap. The trap collision seems to be a little bit small, so I definitely want to make it a little bit bigger. So that way, and then the other thing that I want to adjust is this enemy zone. If you look in here, is the spawn intervals. That is 15. Oh, sorry, I'm in the way. But it's 15 seconds. 15 seconds is a long time. So like for a horde mode type of thing, is like if you're in there for more than 5 seconds, we're gonna spawn monsters and it's gonna be tough. And then the last thing we want to do is check on these guys. These guys have a parameter for how fast they rotate. Min distance, interval, height, movement duration. Let me see. I think it's the rotation, player detection. Okay, enemy shooter. So this, oh, that's what's happening. This should be gone. So we need this gone. I'm gonna do, just to make sure, I'm gonna have an old version in case I mess something up. But I'm pretty sure that we don't need this anymore, and that's what's causing some issues. Shooting point, eyeball. Okay. Rotation offset, but we still need the rotation offset. So enemy target. That's for the player. So we have this rotation speed, shoot times in between. So we'll change it to 2 and 4. So 2 and 4 seconds, maybe 2 and 3 or 1 and 3. That way it's more, you don't have to wait a lot. So you're actually fighting these guys. And so I made it super easy before, and now I'm gonna change that, and it should fix all these issues. Okay, so let's go through it. I'm gonna go through it again one more time, and then we'll wrap up. Let's see. Let me. Oh no, link it. I don't know if it's. Okay, so let me see. So now the spawn should be, and maybe for, okay, so they're kind of bigger. That's good. Seems to be, oh, there's one here. Okay. 2 and 6. Okay, so we have the 6. And you'll notice probably, I'm going to try to go into that room, and you'll notice that it'll be a lot more spawn points. So let's say you're just running through. Oh, there's something going on. Something happened. Oh, timeout, disconnect. Oh, crap. And now they're like shooting me super hard. I'm about to die. So now these guys are harder. So now, oh. Not as hard on this one. So, and I keep, and they're all different sizes. So depending on how big your line is, how I hit my hand against. Okay, so I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna break these doors. I'm gonna come here, and then they're gonna start spawning too fast. But then I want to go like on this door, and I can't. And on last status, there's a disconnect that's happening. I'll double check that. That's probably the Wi-Fi because I'm doing a live stream. But now I'm getting overwhelmed, and so this is too hard. They're like killing me. I'm -1. They just keep killing me. Stop it. So, yeah, that's why I don't like the. Okay, so that's a lot of network stuff. Okay, so it can get pretty crazy. So we'll have to set a limit and figure out what we are gonna do with so that it doesn't get so overwhelming for people. Because obviously in Pokemon, if you are fighting, it won't, obviously you're not spawning new enemies. So maybe the traps will reset once you have all of them down to 0. So maybe that's what we'll do is we'll keep track of and here what we could do is, and I'm going to play with it, but we're going to keep track of the amount of traps, and when that reaches 0, I was I did do remove. Instead in here, if um trap count amount of traps is like 2, amount of traps equal 2. If it's less than or equal to 2, we can do the spawn drop. So that way it's like, okay, like if we are at a point where we're like we're spawning the trap, we're not spawning the traps over and over, we're just waiting until kind of like it's subdued, so like hopefully the player's less overwhelmed, and once all the traps are done, we can reset them for more players as they come. I will have to test again that with the live when we have early access with people coming through and see how they feel. Is it too hard? Because I don't want it to be super easy where people either run through and continue or just have like 1 or 2 waves as you go. And I don't want it to have a predetermined amount because then players are like, well, now I'm going to have to reset the game. Or one thing that we could do that usually happens in these dungeon games is that all the rooms are preset with enemies, and then you just fight through those enemies. But even that seems a little bit not hard sometimes, so we'll have to test that out. If you guys have any questions, let me know. We'll talk about it. If you want to know more about spawning points or anything specific that you want to learn about, I'm going to share everything that I do on this game as much as people want to learn.